The feminist movement was also known as the women's rights movement. It was divided into three waves: the first wave, the second wave, and the third wave. The first wave ran from the 19th through the early 20th centuries and focused mainly on the women's suffrage, which is the women's right to vote. The first convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York. After 2 days, 68 women and 32 men signed the Declaration of Sentiments, which outlined the grievances and set the agenda for the women's rights movement. Later on, a set of 12 resolutions was adopted calling for equal treatment of women and men under law and voting rights. The second wave ran from the 1960s to the 1980s. These feminists were concerned with gender inequality in laws and culture, and also campaigned against cultural and political inequalities. During this time, gender roles developed, like men working and making all the money, while women stayed home cleaning and cooking. The second wave started in the United States and later spread to the Western world and became strong in Europe and parts of Asia, such as Turkey. The third wave happened in the early 1990s. It arose in response to the failures of the second wave. This wave was considered less reactive opposed to the backlash against movements created by the second wave. It had a greater focus on developing the different achievements of women in America. People saw it as a continuation of the second wave, but the third wave made its own contributions.
A feminist is somebody who supports feminism. A feminist also participates in campaigns regarding issues like women's suffrage, domestic and sexual harassment, equal pay, and maternity leave. An important feminist that lived during our time was Coretta Scott King. Coretta was an activist who helped lead civil rights movements throughout the 60s. She had a strong voice that broadened the focus of women's rights and also called together many women to participate in rallies and protests. Two other important feminists were Ann Cote and Shulamit Firestone. Ann Cote was a radical feminist who participated in the New York Radical Women's Group. Shulamit, a radical feminist herself, was a central figure in the development of radical feminism. Another feminist was Kate Millett. Kate was an American feminist writer. She strongly influenced the second wave of feminism. She's also known for her book, Sexual Politics, written in 1970.
The first wave of feminism took place in the late 19th to early 20th centuries. That time period was emerging out of an urban industrialization time period accompanied by liberal and socialist politics. The main goal for the first wave was to give opportunities for women by focusing on suffrage. Suffrage is the right to vote in political elections. The second wave of feminism started in the 1960s and continued up through the 1990s. This wave dealt with anti-war and civil rights movements. Also in this wave was the much debated concept of sexuality and reproductive rights. This wave argued how women should not only be considered housewives and should be able to work in a professional way. The third phase of feminism started in the mid-1990s. It argued about universal womanhood. Women were expected to be dolled up every day of their lives. Ladies weren't looked upon as people, more as objects of beauty. They were expected to be dolled up and perfect every moment of their lives. Because of the women's rights movement, women today now have equal rights as men. Women are allowed to vote, They are paid equally. They can work a man's job if they want to. They are not discriminated. They can be in the army or military, and they can work while they are pregnant.